Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kylie and this is my first YouTube video. Kind of crazy that this is the topic that I chose to talk about, but I've been contemplating talking about the WNBA for quite some time now. I did grow up playing basketball through about halfway through high school. That's a conversation for a different time, but I do understand basketball. I do love basketball, and so I'm kind of ready to talk about it because none of my friends watch the WNBA, so I kind of sound crazy whenever I talk about the stuff that's going on. It's just so juicy. There's so much to talk about. There's always something going on. So I just want to share my thoughts and opinions on here. Go ahead and start today's video with what happened yesterday. Absolutely insane. My channel is titled Pugs and Spice because I do have two pugs. Pebbles is usually on my lap about 90% of the time. Like 90% of the day. So if you do hear something, that is her. So you will probably hear her anytime I'm on the phone with someone and I have my AirPods in, they can hear her. So I do apologize for that, but you know, she's cute, she means well, and she will be here because I cannot sit in my work chair without her in my lap. Hey guys, editing Kylie here, and I just want to say that I am so sorry. You can hear my pug Pebbles snoring the entire video, and I hope it's not too distracting, but if it is, let me know in the comments. I'm going to try my best to find out a situation that works for us. Whenever I sit down anywhere, she wants to be sitting in my lap, so I'm going to have to figure it out. She doesn't really have a nose that works, so when she breathes, you know, she snores. She snorts. So she's a pug. It is what it is. But I just want to say I'm sorry. And hopefully you can still listen to the video and it's not too bad. And knowing it's a pug kind of makes you smile a little bit. We'll go with that. But let me know in the comments. Thanks. Anyways, so we need to talk about what happened yesterday during the Indiana Fever and Connecticut Sun game. I kind of wish I would have been like live reacting to the game or something, because this is not the first time during an Indiana Fever game that I just caught myself like, what is going on? So by now, if you're watching my video, I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you've seen everything there is to see. Everybody's got differing opinions, and you know, let's talk about it. So the first technicals that happened, everybody is saying that the tempers started to flare when JC Sheldon scratched or kind of got Caitlin Clark in the eye. I think it happened before that. So earlier in the game when Caitlin and JC kind of got into it just a little bit, it wasn't enough for any fouls to be called or anything like that, but the referees let them play on. I think that's when we started to get a brief glimpse at what could possibly happen. JC Sheldon does play very close defense. It was during the third quarter, just under 5 minutes left to go, when, let's go ahead and watch the clip here. JC's playing like really close defense. She's kind of like body checking her a bunch too. And depending on what referee you're gonna get that day in the WNBA, that's dependent on if they're gonna call that. To be completely honest, like the refs are just so inconsistent across the board. Like sometimes they are very ticky-tack fouls, sometimes they don't call anything. And during this game, for I would say most of it, they weren't really calling much. So then JC looks like she's, I guess, going for the ball, but she swipes Caitlin's face, and she visibly sees Caitlin kind of like go down and like grab her eye, and she still is like coming up to her. Caitlin stands up, they bump into each other, and Caitlin pushes her back, and JC kind of like gets back in her face. Tina Charles runs over, tries to kind of get them a little separated, and then Mabry comes in and just pushes Caitlin to the ground. And it is so crazy to me because now when they replayed it, it kind of reminded me of that game. Like when I first saw it without any replays, when I saw this play, it reminded me of when Camila Cardozo pushed Flage to the ground during that, I don't think it was a championship game. I don't remember. It might have been. But she like pushed Flage to the ground, and that was a crazy situation. That's what I had playing in my head. I was like, there's no way this is happening again. But then when you kind of see the replay, Marina kind of like body checks her with like her arms here. Like she didn't extend her arms. I'm not saying that makes it okay at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm wondering if that's what the officials kind of like looked at. She just kind of like body checked her versus like pushing her to the ground. I don't know. What's crazy to me is that they did come back with just technicals and a flagrant one on JC. Even the announcers, which I feel like the announcers have also been kind of across the board this year, they've either been like completely on the side of the refs or they've been against the refs, and it's been kind of interesting to see that as well. But during this game, they were pretty much saying the whole time that Marina was going to get thrown out of the game. Marina did not get thrown out of the game. And Indiana was not happy about that. And when I say Indiana, I mean Gainbridge Fieldhouse was not happy about that. They booed Marina Mabry and JC Sheldon every single time that they touched the ball. It was insane. And so I'm watching the game, and let me see. So the last play happened when there was under a minute left, when Sophie and the JC situation broke out. From just under 5 minutes in the third to under a minute left in the fourth, like that gap right there, when the fans are booing, they're just going crazy. The only thing I can play in my head is there's going to be another investigation or something is going to happen, which is really interesting to me because when you watch the NBA, they boo like 24/7. It is so insane how crazy and loud and intense the fan base is for the NBA. And of course, it never feels good to be booed. It doesn't feel good to be on that side of it, but it's interesting to see, and I guess cool to see the WNBA having such passionate fans. It's interesting seeing fans that into the game is what I want to say about that. So the Sophie situation, let's go ahead and play it. So JC gets a breakaway. And when I saw this, I wasn't sure what Sophie was going to do. I've only been watching the WNBA for about 2 years now. I will say I was one of the people that flocked to the WNBA when the Caitlin Clark hype was happening, but she is not the reason why I stayed watching the WNBA. That's part of my WNBA story. If anybody has made it this far and you care about, what I think about certain teams, players, that sort of thing, I'd be happy to share my story on what kind of keeps me watching the WNBA. But I do know a bit about Sophie, and what I've heard about Sophie, she's feisty, she doesn't care, she does not back down to anyone. And so I didn't think she was going to let JC take the layup, but I also didn't think she was going to like bear hug her to the floor. That was diabolical, absolutely diabolical. So she throws her to the floor. She kind of bear hugs her and like kind of pulls her down to the ground. When you watch the replay, JC was already like bumping into Sophie. Arguably, Sophie probably could have played into that and potentially have gotten an offensive foul, depending on how the refs were feeling about the play. But it was so crazy. JC falls to the ground and gets up and starts to charge Sophie. And Sophie's like waiting. Sophie is ready. She is like, come at me. And so she does. And Sophie was ready for it. And so this is where the interesting part of all of this comes in. I wasn't sure where the internet was going to take this. Now, pretty consistently across the board, I would say most comments, most commentary that I've seen on this is like, go Sophie. She actually stood up for Caitlin Clark because last year there were a lot of dirty plays on Caitlin Clark and nobody stood up for her on the team is kind of the sentiment that was going on. Now, Sophie did stand up for Caitlin this year, and I think people overall were happy about that. You kind of need an enforcer, and it's kind of like when in a recent interview, the interviewer asked Angel a specific question, and Ariel Atkins did not like that, and Ariel Atkins stood up for Angel. It's kind of like that. You're coming to their defense, and that's what these young players need that are in the spotlight, and they have good press, they have bad press. They need someone to stand up for them. And I think it's interesting. Now, do I think that there should have been a fight part at the end on Sophie's part? Probably not. No, but at the same time, you know, she did what she felt like she had to do for her teammate. It was a flagrant 2 foul. She did get thrown out of the game. I'm not really familiar with what happens in the W. I'm pretty sure she's going to get fined for that. I don't know if she has to sit out for additional games or anything like that, but it's just so crazy what is going on. And it just leads us to a bigger conversation of what is going on with the referees in the W. And it's not just the Indiana Fever. We're seeing it across the board. So many different teams are having issues. So many different players are having issues. We've had Kelsey Plum come speak out about what's going on. We've had 2 different players now get their hair pulled, and they were just common fouls. It is not an accident to grab someone's hair and pull it. That's not a basketball play, and that's not by accident. It's a choice to grab someone's hair and pull them down. And I do think the players that have had their hair, I've seen Sarah Ashley Barker from the Sparks. She got her hair pulled, and so did Angel Reese. And I know Angel got upset. I'm not sure if Sarah Ashley Barker did. I can't really remember that play, but they have every right to be upset about that. That's not a basketball play. And then for the refs not to call that is absolutely insane. So I don't know what's going to change with the referees. We've had coaches come out, players come out, commentators come out, announcers are talking about it. So many people are talking about what is going on with the referees right now in the W. And at some point, I feel like something needs to change. There's so many things in the WNBA that are being talked about right now, not by just one person, by multiple streams of media, on X, on YouTube, on ESPN, on TV. So many different people are talking about things. When is the WNBA going to step in? That's my question, is when is the commissioner going to make a change in the WNBA and protect the players and protect the product that they have of the WNBA? I have enjoyed watching the WNBA for the most part. I don't like watching football, basketball. There's just certain aspects of the WNBA that just are not fun to watch. And there's been many times before I started this YouTube channel, had I started this a year ago, you would have probably seen the roller coaster that I've gone through of like, I'm not going to watch the WNBA anymore. I can't keep watching the WNBA anymore just because it's so back and forth for me. There's so much good, and the bad stuff is just, it's just annoying to watch, you know? I don't want to see players getting hurt all the time. I don't want to see players taking cheap fouls, like hard cheap fouls that could hurt someone on a breakaway layup just so they don't get a layup. Like, it's 2 points. Get the ball out of the hoop, take it out, and go back down and make another play. It's just, there's just certain things that I'm not on board with, and that's just my overall question is, what is the commissioner going to do? What is the WNBA going to do? All I know is last night was absolutely crazy. Anyways, enough about what happened yesterday. I mean, it's all over every news media. Everyone's been talking about it. But the New York Liberty also beat the Dream yesterday just by 5 points. I was not watching that game. I was flipping back and forth between the Fever and the Sky game. And I probably should have watched a little bit of the Liberty and Dream. It did look like a pretty good game from what I saw. But the Liberty and the Dream, they battled it out. With the Liberty winning, that does mean that the Fever are the East champions for the Commissioner's Cup. So that's exciting for them. And the Mystics also beat the Sky. And I personally was really excited for that matchup. I've really enjoyed watching Kiki Iriafen play this year. And I felt that her and Angel were going to be a really good matchup during the game. I feel like Kiki had a bit of an off game compared to what I've seen in the past. So that was a little bit unfortunate. But, you know, they'll play each other again sometime later this year. But either way, it was still a good game. Angel's shooting percentage is starting to get better, which is good for her. I'm excited for that because I do know that she is better than what she started out the season playing like. So that's good for her. The Sky are looking better. Whether they win or lose, I do think at this point, because they've played 8, 9, 10, they've played 11 games at this point. They look so much better now, 11 games in, than they did at the beginning of the season. It was pretty rocky for them to start, but I do think that now they're starting to get a little bit more into their offense. They're starting to pass the ball more, get better looks, and starting to utilize their players a little bit better. I think they're going to start getting a little bit better. I do think they still have some work to do, but they're definitely getting better. with time. The Wings also beat the Valkyries. That's super exciting for them. The Lynx also beat the Aces, and the Storm beat the Sparks. Lastly, I'll just touch on today, the Phoenix Mercury are playing the Connecticut Sun. But with that, that is going to be the end of this video. If you stuck around until the end, thank you. I do plan on coming out with more videos, whether it be WNBA commentary, when football season comes back around, I'm probably going to want to talk about that too. I am a Cowboys fan. Pebbles is sprawled out right now. If that's, something that you're interested in, press the subscribe and like button. That will help out my channel so much, and we'll chat soon. Bye.